I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and this is the H Factor. In this episode, we are picking up where we left off in episode 2, and I'm going to talk about a big subject, big science. In the aftermath of World War II, the leading and not so leading governments of the world came to a realization. Things like the proximity fuse or radar, and even the atomic bomb, they were all scientific inventions. These were products of scientific and technological progress that happened during or due to the war. Okay, science has backed warfare always, since the beginning of science and warfare. But now we have an example like the Manhattan Project, a collaboration of thousands of scientists that governments hired, put up in a lab at a university to work on whatever project or agenda the governments had in mind, with big results, like the bomb, which was an R&D project run by major universities and labs and curated by governments. The science and scientific progress became a measure of political control, economic interest, and military influences. And the governments or clusters of governments became the patron saints and generous employers. Hello, big science, and hello, the moon landing, the exploration of space in general, from Sputnik and all the way to the International Space Station of today, the Large Hadron Collider, the Very Large Array, radio telescopes listening to the cosmos, and its opposite, looking deep inside the heart of our planet, the Earth Scope. The Advanced Light Source, the ultimate microscope. Everything about big science is big. We've got big budgets, big staffs, big machines, big questions and big payoffs, big everything. Big science. Alvin M. Weinberg, one of the key players of the Manhattan Project, coined the term in one of his articles back in 1967. He compared it to the wonders of earlier civilizations, the pyramids, for example. The same Alvin Weinberg who used the term Faustian bargain to describe nuclear energy. The intellectual history of big science is full of big advances. It indeed gave almost every branch of science an unprecedented push. It took its places. Francis Crick and his co-authors, Watson and Wilkins, classic representatives of small science, made the most significant discovery in biology of the 20th century, the discovery of DNA in 1962. When big science entered the biology scene in 1990, it was able to successfully sequence human DNA, the Human Genome Project that took 13 years and $3 billion, and gave us a clear look at what we are made of. Now, how exciting is that? Neuroscience was undergoing very inspiring changes as well. Roger Sperry's split brain discovery cracked open the door into the brain's operating system for the first time ever in the modern history of science. Sperry discovered that A, the two hemispheres of the brain were not connected, B, they function independently of one another, hence the split brain, and C, the hemispheres in the human brain had different functions. Roger Sperry revolutionized neuropsychology and neurobiology. His theories and his work on axons and their chemical markers date back to the 1940s, all the way to a Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1981. This split brain discovery brought neuroscience front and center. The momentum grew and grew. By the early 2010s, neuroscience seemed ripe and ready for a big push forward, armed with vast advances in molecular biology, physics, chemistry, the latest and greatest new technologies like electron microscopy, computer science on steroids, functional neuroimaging, genetics, genomics, and big computers to count it all. The neuroscientists could now study the nervous system in all aspects, how it is structured, how it works, and how it develops. In July 2009, a prominent neuroscientist, Henry Markram, at the TED Global Conference in Oxford, England, presented to the general public his vision and a promise. Markram told the audience that he could and would simulate a human brain on a supercomputer. He promised to send a hologram to do a TED Talk presentation of its own in just 10 years, a mathematical model capable of consciousness, also known as Henry Markram's Human Brain Project Initiative, or the HBP. His goals promised fundamental breakthroughs in human health and medicine, understanding of perception, reality, and even physical reality. Robots with cognitive skills, and why not, even intelligence. Sounds familiar? It should. Earlier in 2005, Markram had founded the Blue Brain Project with the help of IBM's Blue Gene supercomputer. The project had used data and software to simulate a small subset of a rat's brain, a collection of neurons known as a cortical column. Markram was now ready for an even bigger endeavor, building a supercomputer simulation of the entire human brain. Immediately, he received heavy criticism and a grim prognosis from most of his peers. But Markram was adamant. He wanted to build a human brain, and not a simplified version. No. He promised a facsimile of every neuron and their electrical activity. A base scientific research infrastructure for neuroscience all across Europe. Even though, as his critics immediately intervened, the results of the Blue Brain Project were somewhat late and blurry. Markram called this a paradigm shift, and his many critics as unwilling to embrace it. By January 2013, the European Commission was willing to embrace it. Their secret jury of 25 experts from Europe awarded Henry Markram's HBP initiative a staggering $1.3 billion grant, spread over 10 years, to build his simulation brain. Big money, big goals, big science, and big drama. Now, in less than 2 years, the HBP was already drowning in controversy and even outright disdain. In 2014, more than 800 scientists signed an open letter addressed to the European Commission, questioning the HBP's basic science and organization, calling the project ill-conceived and ill-suited, and labeling Markram's goals as unrealistic and even not reasonable. As big science turns, the Europe-wide collaboration turned into a Europe-wide open call for boycott. Mutiny on the big deck of the SS Science. A year later, the Mediation Committee, called to investigate the critics' claims, had no choice but to agree with them, and the HBP folded. The HBP rebranded itself as a software project that could count and curate the existing data of the brain, develop simulators, and allow others to build models. To pursue more reasonable or realistic goals as outlined in the Mediation Committee's 53-page report. Markram was stripped of his executive position and was ordered not to talk to the press. Why? Well, the report sums it up as, change the scientific focus, son. Be more realistic. According to a lot of mainstream neuroscientists, nearly 1,000, even if we were able to map, simulate, and re-engineer the human brain down to every neuron and connection, it would tell us nothing about cognition, memory, or emotion. Just copying the brain's hardware, atom by atom, will tell you nothing about the software that's running it. It would not account for, map, pinpoint, or even nod in the general direction of, drumroll please, consciousness, which is big science's biggest headache. All I want to add to this tale is that the HBP is not the only participant in the big neuroscience parade. Almost concurrently with Europe's HBP, the U.S. announced the Brain Advancing Innovative Neurotechnologies, or the BRAIN Initiative, with 3 billion ducks quacking in the pond. Also, Microsoft's Big Brain and the HCP Human Connectome Project. We have China's BrainTome Atlas and others. Every significant political power in the world is in this race. We have Israel, Russia, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan spending the big dollars on far more realistic goals like artificial intelligence and machine learning. This is all we have for this episode. Please go to our website, GameChangerNet.com. The links are right here and below us. Participate in the conversation. In the next episode, we may or may not get to Schrodinger's cat. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and remember, the process of evolution is constant. And right now, it's time to fade to black.